Born live on television while millions watched, Desi Arnaz Jr. became famous before he could even cry. But here's the twist. The boy who started his life as America's greatest media sensation would one day become its most complete ghost, vanishing so thoroughly that a single photograph in 2024 would shock the world into asking, where has he been all this time? His story is not simply about fame and its consequences. It is about what happens when a human being is turned into a symbol before he ever gets the chance to become a person. From his very first breath, Desi Arnaz Jr. was never truly allowed to be ordinary, and that single fact would shape every decision, every relationship, and every disappearance that followed. Picture this: January 19th, 1953. A hospital room in Los Angeles becomes ground zero for television history. But this wasn't just any birth. It was the birth heard by 44 million people. On the exact day Desi Arnaz Jr. entered the world, his mother's character on I Love Lucy gave birth to a son on national television, creating a moment so surreal, so impossible to replicate, that it would define the rest of his life in ways he never asked for. The extraordinary collision between real life and scripted television turned this newborn into the first person in history to become a celebrity at the moment of birth. The episode airing that night drew one of the largest audiences in early television history, and by morning, the name Desi Arnaz Jr. was on the lips of an entire nation. He hadn't smiled yet. He hadn't opened his eyes to the world, and already the world had claimed him as its own. TV Guide didn't just put a baby on their first ever cover, they slapped a price tag on him. Lucy's $50 million baby. That headline wasn't just clickbait from another era, it was a declaration. Before he could walk or talk, the media had already calculated his commercial value and broadcast it to the nation. This moment marked something far more significant than a magazine cover. It was the invention of a concept that would later dominate modern entertainment culture. The idea that a person's private life, their birth, their relationships, their pain, could be packaged and sold. Desi Jr. didn't start that trend. He was its very first victim. CBS and Desilu Productions understood exactly what his birth meant for ratings, for revenue, and for the cultural stranglehold that I Love Lucy already had on American households. And he was merchandise before he was a memory. Behind the curtain of America's favorite couple lay a marriage already falling apart. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz looked perfect on screen, but off-screen the reality was infidelity, bitter financial disputes, and lifestyle clashes that created an atmosphere of constant tension. They were the visionary founders of Desilu Productions, the powerhouse behind I Love Lucy, and eventually landmark series like Star Trek and The Untouchables. But none of that professional success was enough to hold the marriage together. Desi Jr. was born at the absolute peak of their fame, which was also, tragically, the precise moment their relationship began its quiet collapse. He arrived into a home that looked like paradise from the outside and felt like a slow earthquake from within. That contradiction, public perfection masking private destruction, would follow him for the rest of his life. No child in history had ever been born into such a perfectly constructed trap. Desi Jr. didn't just have famous parents, he literally shared his birth with a television script. He was a plot device before he was a person. His older sister Lucy Arnaz, born in 1951, shared this world with him, and both children were regularly presented to the public as extensions of the ideal television family their parents portrayed on screen. But according to various memoirs, including Lucy's own, the reality inside that household was anything but ideal. The instability of their parents' marriage created a tense, unpredictable home life. Their mother, Lucille Ball, was fiercely protective, some would say suffocatingly controlling, determined to shield her children from the very industry that had made them famous. Yet the shield and the spotlight were the same object. There was no separating them. Desi Jr. attended West Los Angeles College, but academia was never really an option. The entertainment industry wasn't waiting for him to finish school. It was already calling. Entering show business felt inevitable because everything had already been laid out before he arrived. The fame, the resources, the family name, the public expectation. Industry professionals recognized real talent in him, particularly in music. but talent was almost beside the point. Every performance was measured not against his peers, but against two of the most iconic entertainers America had ever produced. And that comparison wasn't occasional. It was relentless, built into every review, every headline, every introduction. Choosing to pursue both music and acting gave him more options, but it also left him without a single clear identity of his own. Always split, always straddling two worlds, never fully claiming either one. At just 11 years old, Desi Jr. wasn't worrying about homework like other kids his age. He was the drummer for Dino, Desi, and Billy, a teen sensation that took the 1960s by storm alongside Dino Martin and Billy Hinshaw. Their 1965 single, I'm a Fool, climbed to number 17 on the Billboard Hot 100. The follow-up, Not the Lovin' Kind, drove the point home. Overnight, he was a pop star, screaming fans, national tours, recording sessions, television appearances, all before he was old enough to drive. The speed of that rise was thrilling and brutal in equal measure. While his peers were navigating the relatively simple pressures of adolescence, Desi Jr. was navigating fame, industry politics, and the constant grinding weight of living up to a name that wasn't entirely his own. From 1968 to 1974, America watched Desi Jr. grow up in real time on Here's Lucy, where he played Craig Carter alongside his real-life mother and sister. For 6 consecutive years, viewers witnessed his visible transformation from boy to young man, season by season, week by week, on national television. There is something uniquely invasive about that kind of exposure. Every awkward phase, every moment of uncertainty, every stumble through young adulthood happened under the gaze of millions. The show made him a household name, but it also chained him to his mother's image in ways that became increasingly difficult to escape. The more successful Here's Lucy became, the more clearly it communicated a message Desi Jr. never intended to send, that he could only exist in relation to Lucille Ball, not independent of her. By the early 1970s, Desi Jr. was fighting for his artistic life. He threw himself into film roles: Red Sky at Morning, Marco, Billy Two Hats, Joyride. Anything that might signal to the industry that he was a serious actor capable of standing on his own. In The Mambo Kings, he took the most personal risk of his career, portraying his own father, Desi Arnaz Jr., on screen. It was the only time he ever played that role, and by all accounts it was a thoughtful, deeply committed performance. The critics were respectful. The box office was not. In 1972, he won the Golden Globe for Most Promising Newcomer, an award that should have been the launching pad for a defining career. Instead, it became a high watermark. The industry had already drawn its conclusions about who he was and what he could achieve, and no award was going to rewrite that story. By the mid-1980s, the momentum had stalled completely. Major roles stopped arriving. Minor television appearances filled the gaps. He reunited with Billy Hinch in a new version of the old band, performing classics for middle-aged audiences chasing nostalgia. It kept him busy, but it didn't move anything forward. By 2012, Desi Jr. made it official. He retired. There was no announcement, no farewell tour, no parting interview. He simply stopped. The only subsequent credit was a producing role on a 2021 film, a quiet footnote at the end of a catalog that had once promised so much more. Those who had worked with him understood the decision. The comparisons had never stopped. The shadow had never lifted. At some point, walking away became the only honest response left. At 17 years old, Desi Jr. fell into a relationship with actress Patty Duke, who was 23. What might have been a private chapter of young romance became tabloid dynamite the moment it became public. Lucille Ball came down hard against it, furious about the age gap and what it could do to her son's carefully managed public image. But the relationship carried consequences far beyond any disapproval. After it ended, Duke became pregnant. Her son, later revealed to the world as Sean Astin, the actor who would bring Samwise Gamgee to life in The Lord of the Rings, was widely assumed for years to be Desi Jr.'s biological child. A DNA test eventually proved otherwise. Sean Astin's biological father was Michael Tell, Duke's former husband. But the damage was done. Desi Jr.'s name had been permanently woven into one of Hollywood's most enduring paternity controversies, and his chosen response, complete silence, only deepened the intrigue. In May 1972, Desi Jr. announced his engagement to Liza Minnelli, daughter of the legendary Judy Garland. Two famous names, two iconic family legacies, coming together in what the media treated like a royal match. It lasted 1 year. When the engagement ended with no official explanation, People magazine reported that both felt crushed under the weight of constant scrutiny and the impossible expectations that came with their families' names. It was a relationship defeated not by incompatibility, but by exposure. The pattern was becoming clear. Desi Jr. could not sustain a private life under a public microscope, and the microscope was always there, always focused, always hungry for the next chapter of a story he had never agreed to tell. In 1979, he married actress Linda Pearl. The marriage lasted exactly 1 year. No public reason was given. No dramatic scandal followed. It simply ended, quietly and completely, like so many things in his life that had once held promise. Then in 1987, something shifted. He married Amy Laura Barguil and relocated to Boulder City, Nevada, where the two of them co-managed the Boulder Theater in the Boulder City Ballet Company. For the first time, Desi Jr. was building something outside the entertainment machine, a life rooted in community, in artistic service, in the kind of quiet meaning that rarely makes headlines. It looked for a while like he had finally found the exit he'd been searching for his entire life. Desi Jr. had two daughters. His first, Julia Arnaz, was born in 1968 to girlfriend Susan Callahan Howe. Their relationship was initially strained and complicated by years of distance, but a court-ordered DNA test confirmed his paternity, and the two eventually rebuilt a genuine connection. Julia's own daughter, Desiree S. Anzalone, would become Lucille Ball's only biological great-grandchild. His second daughter, Haley, who was born during his marriage to Amy Barguil. About Haley, almost nothing has been publicly confirmed, and that appears to be exactly as Desi Jr. intended it. In interviews, he expressed a fierce desire to give her what had been stolen from him at birth: a normal life, free from cameras, free from comparisons, free from the crushing weight of a famous name. In 2015, Amy Laura Barguil died of cancer at age 63. She had been married to Desi Jr. for 28 years. She was his anchor, his partner in the quiet life he had so deliberately built. Her death didn't just break his heart. It broke something structural in his world, the foundation on which everything peaceful had been constructed. After her passing, Desi Jr. withdrew completely. No public appearances, no interviews, no statements. Publishers had been circling for years, dangling lucrative memoir deals. He declined every single one. Television networks extended invitations. He ignored them all. The man who had once been one of the most recognized faces in America had made a final, irreversible decision. He was done being seen. 5 years later, in September 2020, Desiree S. Anzalone, Desi Jr.'s granddaughter and the only third-generation direct descendant of Lucille Ball, died of breast cancer. She was 31 years old. Diagnosed in 2013, she had fought the disease with remarkable public courage, sharing her journey on social media with honesty and hope, even through the most grueling rounds of chemotherapy. When the cancer returned and ultimately took her life, the loss reverberated far beyond the family. Fans of Lucille Ball mourned alongside them. But for Desi Jr., yet this was not a public moment. It was the second devastating personal loss in 5 years, and it completed his retreat from a world that had taken so much from him. In a final act that spoke volumes without a single word, Desi Jr. formally resigned from the board of the Lucille Ball Desi Arnaz Center in Jamestown, New York, an organization he had served as vice president for 5 years. The reason, according to internal sources, was his deep discomfort with what he saw as the commercial exploitation of his mother's image. The center had shifted toward market-driven ventures that felt to him like a betrayal of something sacred. His resignation was not a tantrum or a public statement. It was a quiet withdrawal from the last official tie connecting him to his family's public legacy. A clean, with deliberate severance that underscored everything he had already been communicating through his absence. I am no longer available to be part of this. Cultural analysts and those who knew him professionally have long pointed to something deeper beneath Desi Jr.'s retirement. Some older reports hinted at emotional crises during the years when his career stalled and his relationships fractured. None of it was ever confirmed. No medical records were released. No public acknowledgement was made. But the pattern of his life tells its own story. Born famous with virtually no period of adulthood free from scrutiny, Desi Jr. had been performing in some capacity for cameras, for critics, for expectations, since before he could form a conscious thought. The cumulative weight of that exposure, compounded by the deaths of his wife and granddaughter, didn't just push him toward retirement, it pushed him toward erasure, a total intentional disappearance from the world that had never stopped watching. After decades under the blinding lights of American celebrity, Desi Arnaz Jr. chose Boulder City, Nevada, a small, unhurried town far from Hollywood's reach. Between 1997 and 2015, he and Amy ran the Boulder Theater, a restored vintage cinema that became a genuine community art space, hosting stage performances, workshops, and ballet events. After Amy's death, the community continued what they had started together, preserving Desi's contribution in local historical records even as he stepped back from any official role. Local residents quietly noted his ongoing generosity, financial support to children's theater groups, contributions to nonprofit arts organizations, acts of giving that were never publicized and never performed for an audience. For the first time in his life, he was doing good work without anyone keeping score. Then, in August 2024, his sister Lucille Arnaz posted a single photograph. Desi Jr. at home in Boulder City, healthy, peaceful, smiling. The caption read, "Desi still here, healthy, peaceful, and enjoying the simple things." The image spread across social media within hours, landing on entertainment news sites around the world. For fans who had grown up watching I Love Lucy, who had followed his career through its peaks and valleys, who had wondered in silence where he had gone, the photo landed like a message in a bottle from a man long presumed lost at sea. It wasn't a comeback. It wasn't an announcement. It was simply proof of life. And somehow that was enough to reignite a decade's worth of unanswered questions. Sometime in the early 2000s, Desi Jr. began studying the philosophy of Vernon Howard, the founder of the New Life Foundation, an organization built around the principles of personal awareness, meditation, and emotional independence. Howard's teachings centered on releasing attachment to fame, to approval, to the endless performance of identity that modern life demands. For a man who had spent his entire existence being watched, evaluated, compared, and commodified, Howard's philosophy must have felt like oxygen. Let go of what the world thinks of you. Stop performing. Stop needing to be seen. It aligned perfectly with the path Desi Jr. had already chosen and gave it something it had previously lacked: a framework, a vocabulary, a reason that went deeper than exhaustion. In 2018, a journalist attempted to reach Desi Jr. through former acquaintances, hoping for an interview. The response came back clean and simple. "There's nothing more to say." 4 words, no anger, no drama. No door left slightly open for a future reconsideration. Just a wall politely constructed and permanently in place. His sister Lucy has confirmed at private events that her brother has never felt the need to explain himself to the public. Not his retirement, not his silence, not his choices. And unlike so many celebrities who disappear temporarily before engineering a calculated return, every signal from Desi Jr. points in one direction only. He is not coming back. He was never going to come back. The decision was made, and it was made forever. He was born on live television while 44 million people watched. He spent his childhood being introduced to the world as a symbol of something larger than himself. He spent his adulthood fighting for recognition, for independence, for a single relationship that might survive the pressure of constant public scrutiny. And then he lost the 2 people who had made the quiet life worth living. After all of that, after every stage and every camera and every headline, Desi Arnaz Jr. made the choice that no one in his position is supposed to make. He simply walked away. Not to another project, not to a quieter version of fame, but to actual, genuine, unremarkable life. The kind where nobody recognizes you at the grocery store, where no one is calculating your net worth or measuring your achievements against your parents. He found peace in Boulder City, Nevada, in a small home, far from any spotlight. And in the end, it is that silence, more than any performance, more than any award, more than any headline, that speaks most truthfully about who Desi Arnaz Jr. really was once the world finally stopped watching.